Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips that I think every single Kindred player needs to know. Now, if you're new to my channel, my name is LowFit. I do educational content. I try to give you a better understanding of these champions and to give you more game knowledge and hopefully help you get a little bit better to the point where you can start climbing a bit more with your chosen champions. Now, I heavily value you guys' time, so I have timestamps at every single point in my video where you can skip this intro, or if you can skip a certain tip, as well as down in the scrolling bar where you can forward to a certain part of the video. There is going to be segmented with every single tip, so you can navigate. Hey, I already know a decent amount of runes and what I'm going to be doing with my items. I want to know about something else. You can just completely skip that part. So I'm a bit limited with this format. I can only do 5, and I don't want these videos to run too long. So if you play a lot of Kindred, make sure to comment your own tips down below. I love to see those kind of tips. And with all that out of the way, let's jump into the first tip. Alright, and jumping into tip number 1, I'm going to go over one of Kindred's strongest attributes that are really going to help you out when you are playing Kindred and maybe help you look at the map in a little bit of a different way, and that is her ability to scale with terrain, making her slippery and more dangerous in certain areas where she is able to just pop over the walls extremely quickly when you are playing Kindred. For example, a classic matchup that you see a lot in pros is Kindred into Olaf. You're able to take advantage of his immobility with using a lot of mobility yourself, and your decent dueling potential helps you sometimes stand up to Olaf in certain situations. But say you're playing Kindred into Olaf and you are fighting Olaf on this side of the wall and you are unable to use your Q. If he gets a really decent all-in on you, he hits a couple cleavers, he will be able to chase you down quite easily. However, if you are fighting him over here and you are going and dancing back between the walls, maybe he's flashing over, maybe you're getting the reduced cooldown on your Qs with your W, and really taking full advantage of that, you are able to be a lot stronger of a duelist when you are playing over here. Similar to something like a Poppy is going to just really excel at getting picks inside of the jungle, as she wouldn't really be able to get that many decent picks when there are just really big wide open lanes. So with Kindred, she has very safe sides. When you're looking to approach a mid lane gank, it is always going to be easier and safer for you. Say if you're on this red side, you are able to just pop back over the wall. So this is going to be the safer side when you're on the red side, and it is going to be more dangerous to be on this side of the lane when you are over on the red side. But however, it is completely the opposite on this other side, as the blue side is going to be a lot safer for you, as you are going to be able to jump over the wall, and you will be unable to jump over the wall on that side, as well as the top and bottom lane share a similar thing with a skinny wall on this side and a skinny wall on that side. So you have really strong areas where you know you can duel in certain situations, and you can escape and be extremely slippery, frustrating Kindred in those different spots. So get really acquainted with wall jumping in the different areas that you are able to really get over the wall and take full advantage of the terrain scaling with Kindred. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, this is going to be one of her strongest strengths that I definitely do not see a lot of the lower elo players taking full advantage of when they are playing Kindred. So how Kindred's ultimate works is it saves people's lives. They become invulnerable during the duration, and it also works when you are fighting against the different objectives. So we're just going to auto this down, and we're going to pop our ult, and you are unable to kill the dragon in that, and it ideally is going to consume the enemy's smite, because a lot of people in bronze, silver, and gold do not know that Kindred's ultimate can save the different objectives. Now, how you can look to take advantage of this is, hopefully you've played a decent amount of Kindred. You're not just first timing it in ranked. You are going to know exactly when that Lamb's Respite is going to drop. With that 4-second timing, a lot of people do not know that off the top of their head. They might have an idea, but this should really enable you to just get those really, really clutch smites, because it is on your terms. You know exactly when the Lamb's Respite is going to fall off, and you know exactly when you need to burst and throw out your challenging smite, where the enemy jungler might not be 100% sure on when it is going to end, because Kindred is a little bit of a rare champion, and this is just going to really allow you to control the games and the objectives when playing Kindred. And that will wrap up tip number 2. Okay, and getting into tip number 3, we're going to talk about the items and builds. Now, her item setup is extremely reliant on the different situations in the games and what she is looking to do. If she is countered by the enemy jungler and doesn't really want to look for any of those early game fights, maybe she is going to be jungling into something like an Elise that can really just punish her in the 1v1s, and you want to look to be a little bit more slippery. You want to look for things like water walking, maybe things that are going to give you a little bit more movement speed around the map where you're just looking to gank. You aren't looking to invade the enemy jungler. Maybe you're looking to fight against something, maybe something like a Graves or a Lee Sin that you are going to try and do a little bit. Things like a sudden impact and a Ravenous Hunter can do a little bit of work. However, I really like the Ultimate Hunter and the Relentless Hunter. The Relentless Hunter just enables you to chase people down a bit, and then the Ultimate Hunter really helps out with an extremely long cooldown that is going to be on your Lamb's Respite. Now, I think Conquer is pretty much a mainstay in what you are going to need, except a very niche situation where you might look to go into press the attack. With the current Conquer changes going up to 12 stacks, if there is going to be a very bursty team fight, say both team has 2 assassins coming out of the mid and the top, maybe the jungle, or maybe an assassin like Pyke out of the support role, things like press the attack that can have really instant impact and do not have to rely on a consistent fight that is going to really allow you to stack up your Conquer fully. Press the attack might have more overall usage in those different situations. These are just kind of just a sample set of runes, but if you have any questions for me, I'd love to help you out in the comments down below, and that will wrap up this tip. All right, and jumping into tip number 4 with Kindred, I want to talk about optimal team fighting with Kindred. As you are an extremely strong scaling marksman, you are going to be putting in a little bit different than say a Hecarim or a Gragas or those really big tanky frontline champions. When you are playing Kindred, you are looking to be pretty much in the middle of the fight. You do not want to be behind a Lux, and you do not want to be in front of maybe something like a Malphite. So position yourself maybe a little bit central to your team is going to be rather important, because it is going to allow you to get off extremely strong Lamb Respites and really help out that target. Say you overextend a little bit in the front lines, maybe chasing down a tank that's about to die, but the enemy Zed jumps in and really looks to take out your maybe your 8-0 Jinx, and you are really letting your team down if you are overextending a bit. So try and stay really central and be able to provide the Lamb's Respite to where the enemy is applying their pressure. Also, front to back team fights are where consistent damage ADCs really thrive. Things like Janna and Lulu and Yumi with a strong scaling ADC and a big frontline are usually going to win those frontline skirmishes, and you are able to augment that quite a bit by being a secondary damage dealer. Maybe not having the biggest frontline, but you are able to burst out the enemy jungle or the enemy's frontline a little bit quicker with your percentage HP damage. So in summation, just try and stay central in your team fight. You do not want to be overextending too much when you're playing Kindred unless you're insanely far ahead. And that will wrap up tip number 4. All right, and getting into tip number 5, I want to talk about something that's going to be rather important when playing Kindred, and that is the different team comps and setups. I don't think Kindred is blind pickable as a champion unless you're maybe a one-trick pony. So let's go over different situations where Kindred is going to be extremely strong and the reasoning behind those. Now, Kindred is going to be really strong against 2 of this archetype of Fiddlesticks Hecarim that have a very big ult engage that can be countered by your ultimate. Second, she has very good anti-assassin potential with her ultimate, so things like Rek'Sai, Kha'Zix, and Master Yi that are able to just really go in there and burst out a champion really quickly is going to be a decent matchup for Kindred, as well as being able to outclass the Olaf with your superior terrain scaling and being a very slippery champion. Now, Kindred is going to be countered against champions that have a very strong frontline presence that are able to really draw out those team fights. Things like a Trundle are going to be pretty good into Kindred because they're going to shred the maybe only one frontliner that you have and really just provide a huge frontline for your team. Also, things with pick like Elise that can just burst you 100 to 0 before you can get out your ultimate are going to be rather troublesome. Also, displacements like Lee Sin, like Gragas, are going to be able to, they're going to be able to pop you out of your ultimate, so you need to be very wary of them. Next up, Champions that Kindred is good with. Now, this is an extremely important part. I probably shouldn't have waited until the end of the video to talk about this, but Kindred really succeeds when she has roaming potential out of her lanes as well as lane boys. So it does not surprise me at all that Bard has a 6% plus 6% win rate when it is paired with a Kindred, because it is a constantly roaming jungler that's going to enable you to grab those marks, as well as things with lane presence that are able to get lane priority and be the first to roam. Things like Fizz and Zed that post level 3, they pretty much are going to have lane presence in most of those matchups. And then other things like Twisted Fate are really going to enable you because they are able to roam and back you up extremely quickly with the Destiny Gate. So make sure you are keeping these things in mind when you are playing Kindred jungle. Do not go into a game where you have a Kayle in the top lane, a Veigar in the mid lane, a Vayne in the bot lane, and a Janna in the bot lane, where there is just going to be a lot of people that are looking to be in the back line, looking to be very just trying to scale. They aren't looking to roam. Don't force your scaling champions to fight early game. You really, an ideal setup would be something like a LeBlanc in the mid lane, something like, or a Fizz or a Zed, an assassin in the mid lane that has a lot of pressure. A top lane, something like a Darius that can roam and really easily help you, and they're pretty much going to be able to control the wave the way they want, and then make maybe a lethality Varus or Draven in the bot lane. Now, Janna support, you do have a little bit higher of a win rate with her. That's because she can roam pretty quickly with her increased movement speed. But the reason why I paired Vayne with the Janna is they're not going to have too much lane control, and in general, a lot of Janna players are going to be sitting in the back. So keep this in mind when you're playing Kindred. You do not want to blind pick this champion unless you're a one-trick pony, and make sure that you are picking Kindred in the right situations where you're going to have a bit of lane pressure, because there's nothing worse than picking Kindred with no winning lanes and the enemy jungler is just able to eat up all of those scuttles and really deny you your marks. And that will wrap up my final tip, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below. And as always, guys, take it easy.